Nature's produced some very weird, almost alien-like looking animals over the millennia. I mean, just look at that thing. But today we're going to be talking about some of the strange animals that I own and use in my programs. In the sequel to our very first ever YouTube video, this is 5 of my strangest animals part 2, Multiverse of Strangeness. When you're done with this video, don't forget to go back and watch 5 of our strangest animals part 1. First up is one of everyone's favorite bug species, La Cucaracha. This is the Madagascar hissing cockroach. Now, cockroaches get kind of a bad rep. A lot of people associate them with like kind of dirty environments like nasty apartments, garbage, trash, things like that. But really, I mean, of the 4,600 species of cockroach on the planet, only about 1% of them are actually considered a pest to human environments. The vast majority of them are tropical. They like it really, really humid. They like it really hot, like this one. If it gets too cold, like under 60, 50 degrees for too long, they'll just die. The males have these protruding horns you can see right here behind the head, and they'll actually use those to battle other males for mating rights, kind of like other larger animals like bighorn sheep and deer. The thing that makes these bugs famous is the hissing sound. Now, when most bugs make their noises, they're either vibrating or rubbing something together, like grasshoppers will rub their legs together, cicadas will vibrate their body. What these guys do is completely different. Now, insects have these holes along the side of their body called spiracles. They breathe through these. The hissing cockroach, however, can essentially hold its breath and then force air out rapidly through these little holes to make their sound. Kind of like if you hold your breath and puff your cheeks up, and you only give a little mouth opening, all the air rushes out. They use these calls for a variety of things. They can use it either as an alarm call to show aggression or irritation towards another cockroach. They can use it for mating, a whole bunch of things. And each cockroach actually has its own identifiable hiss from other ones, so other cockroaches in the colony will be able to recognize that cockroach. Further disproving the disgusting thing is these animals are huge clean freaks. The first thing they're probably going to do when I set them down is they're going to clean themselves meticulously. They find my hand disgusting. They're going to be just like a cat. They're going to lick themselves clean. They hate germs. There's actually no smell associated with this bug or its poop. Almost every show I bring these to, I get asked by at least one kid, is it going to bite me? Now, they do eat a lot of things, but not of the living. They are what's called decomposers. They eat a lot of rotten fruits and remains of carcasses and other things that very few animals want to eat on the forest floor. And by eating this, they prevent bacteria and sickness and rot from spreading. They're also sometimes referred to as living fossils because researchers believe this species, out of all the other species of cockroach on the planet, this one is the closest living specimen to the prehistoric cockroaches that used to live ages ago and actually predated the dinosaurs. This is the Blackheaded Python, and they have a very interesting coloration compared to most snakes. They have this very gorgeous black, brown, kind of cream-colored tiger striping down the body, and then the head is just a solid jet black. It almost looks like they just took their head and just kind of dunked it in ink or tar, and that's actually where they get their nickname, the tar pot, over in Australia. That black head actually serves as a solar panel because in the morning when it's cool and all the other reptiles are out basking and getting the heat, these guys can actually just stick just their head outside their burrow and that head will absorb a ton of heat. And that way they can heat up their entire body without having to expose themselves to predators. Unlike most python species, black-headed pythons are actually primarily reptile eaters. Not only that, but they're immune to just about all of Australia's venomous snakes' venom. So kind of like our king snakes over here in North America, which are immune to like rattlesnakes and stuff. But over in Australia, they have much more dangerous snakes to contend with. Things like eastern browns, taipans, tiger snakes. If you can eat the world's deadliest snake, and not only that, but survive their bite, respect. In the genus Aspidites, which this snake along with their close cousin the Woma python are in, they actually have a very unique head shape and morphology for pythons because they spend a lot of time underground. They have a strengthened rostral scale, which is this scale right here at the tip of the snout, and that's to assist with burrowing. Most pythons have this sort of narrower snout with a widened skull like the ball python or carpet pythons, which are also found in Australia. Aspidites look almost like an elapid. This species lacks the heat pits that you'll see on a lot of pythons' jaws, kind of like Burmese pythons, carpet pythons, ball pythons, those holes they have right here. They don't have them because, again, they're not eating warm-blooded things really. They don't really need them to seek out those warm-blooded rodents. These guys, again, eat reptiles. What they have instead is actually a very similar thermosensory organ that's tucked right behind that strengthened rostral scale that we talked about, and they use that to help track down their cold-blooded prey like frogs, snakes, and lizards. You can learn even more about the black-headed python and some of our other Australian reptiles in our first Into the Wild Australia video right here. Next up is probably the closest living thing you will ever see to a Pokemon, and that is the Axolotl. They're a critically endangered amphibian that you're only going to find in one place on the planet, and that's a lake system in Mexico. So most amphibians go through a life cycle. I mean, we all study in school. You start off with an egg, that egg will hatch. They'll become kind of a swimming, aquatic larval form, picture tadpoles with frogs. And then eventually those will evolve into their final form, which is a terrestrial frog, toad, salamander, things like that. Axolotls are a really weird species of salamander that never really evolve into that final form. They stay as their aquatic larval form. They keep all their adolescent features, and this is called neoteny. They don't fully develop lungs and they stick with their gills. That's what these little fluffy frilly appendages sticking off the side of their head are, and those will increase the surface area for gas exchange. Now they have the insane ability to regenerate just about any part of their body. And not regeneration like what the Doctor goes through on Doctor Who at the end of each Doctor's era, when the Doctor transforms into the next Doctor and you have to cry and say goodbye to the Doctor you've known and loved for the last few years.
I don't want to go.
I'm fine. They've been shown to regenerate parts of their spinal cord, their lungs, their heart, their limbs. A bigger axolotl or a predator could come along and chomp off a leg, and they'll just grow back a fully functioning one right down to the fingertips within a month. That'll be good to go. And when these species regenerate, there is actually no scarring. It is impossible to tell what is old and what is new. And all the things that these guys can do, they're one of the most studied amphibians on the planet, and they might hold the key for several huge, huge breakthroughs in human medicine in the next 20, 30 years. Now, they only appear to be able to regenerate their limbs about 4 or 5 times, but I mean, still, that's really impressive. That's more limbs than we can regrow. And researchers are still studying this species like crazy because, I mean, we don't even know the maximum capabilities or applications of what this kind of natural phenomena are. Another awesome discovery made by researchers is that axolotls are 1,000 times more resistant to cancer than mammals are. Researchers are still trying to figure out the how and why exactly, but I mean, if they can unlock that would bode very well for us developing a cure to cancer. The ancient Aztecs actually revered axolotls for their appearance and for their regenerative abilities. They thought it was the living embodiment of one of their gods, the Xolotl, which is the ferryman. He basically brings, when someone dies, he brings the soul into the afterlife. And now from Mexico, we go down to South America for the last 2 animals on our list. First up is the fluffy, furry, and adorable chinchilla, which is actually a world record holder for the softest animal on the planet. They have such abnormally soft fur because their hairs are so bizarre. Where they live at very high altitudes where it can get very, very cold, and because of this, their fur has evolved to be very dense. For humans, for every 1 hair follicle we have 1 kind of connected hair. For chinchillas, though, for every 1 hair follicle, they can have up to 70 hairs attached to that follicle. Their fur is supposedly so dense that ectoparasites like mites and fleas and stuff will actually suffocate in their fur. So these parasites prefer to go to some other type of mammal that's a lot easier for them to live on. The fur is also so dense that it can't get wet. If it gets really, really wet, then there's almost minimal airflow to the undercoat. So that hair, rather than drying out like most mammals, it'll just start getting moldy and bacteria will build up and it can get infected and it'll end in a very, very bad time for the chinchilla. So what they do in the wild is they'll actually roll around in volcanic ash. And this ash will help clean their coats. And that's why in captivity, I have to do something called a dust bath for the chinchilla a couple times a week. And this gives them the opportunity to clean their fur without having to take an actual bath. They can also do something really cool with this fur called fur slipping. So say a predator grabs them, they can voluntarily go bald. They can voluntarily let all that fur go. Predator's left with a claw full of fur while they run away and they'll grow that fur back in another month or 2. Chinchillas are rodents just like hamsters and rats, so they have those 2 teeth that never stop growing. They always need to chew things down. But they also take part in something called coprophagy. Coprophagy is the act of eating a certain poop that they produce called cecotropes. Now, where these animals live, there really isn't much in the way of nutritious food. They live all the way up on these high mountains, so they eat a lot of dried grasses and things like that. But to extract even more nutrients from their food, they'll eat and digest it, and then they'll actually poop out the cecotropes, which is the first type of poop, and then they eat those to extract even more nutrients from the food so nothing goes to waste. They're also very long-lived for rodents, whereas mice and rats and hamsters live maybe 4 or 5 years max. These guys have been reported to live over 20. I could go on and on about chinchillas. They're really awesome. They're one of my favorite species that I keep. They can jump very well. But one last cool little fact is they actually don't have sweat glands. Now, where they're from, it's obviously very cold. They're not used to the 100+ degrees of the summer up here in New York. So I actually can't take her to shows in the summer because if it gets over 78, 80 degrees, it gets very dangerous for a chinchilla. With no sweat glands and this super dense heat-trapping fur, they can get heat exhaustion and die very, very quickly. And lastly, we have what is my largest animal I currently own. And anyone that's seen my program before has probably been waiting for him to show up in a video because he's kind of the star of my show. But this is Norman, my Argentine black and white tegu. Tegus are a distant cousin of the monitor lizard or varanid family. Varanidae you're going to find anywhere in Africa, Australia, and Asia. Tegus live in South America. Now there's quite a few differences, but there's a few similarities. They both have that big long forked tongue. They both have a Jacobson's organ to help smell with. They both kind of walk in this kind of primordial dinosaur way. Argentine black and white tegus, and I've heard it pronounced Argentine, Argentine. I've heard people argue both ways. I don't care, whichever, but they are the largest species of tegu on the planet. They're actually one of the largest lizards I can own where I'm from here in New York State. I do know they're illegal in a few states. And they get about over 20 pounds, and the males can grow to be about over 4 feet long. When they're babies, they actually start out with this kind of really bright green coloration, which is really interesting. They're actually almost like a super predator because they see really well, they smell really well, they hear very well, they can run very fast, surprisingly fast. They can actually run bipedally in short bursts, and they can jump straight in the air to catch out a bird out of mid-flight, but they are very lazy. Unlike most of your other large reptilian predators, your big snakes, your crocodiles, your huge varanids like Niles and Komodos, they are all carnivores. Tegus, on the other hand, eat a lot of fruit. They are omnivores. The males get these huge kind of poofy, weird-looking jowls, and they're actually very deceiving because those contain a lot of muscle. They can bite with about somewhere around 300 pounds per square inch of jaw strength. Wolves are somewhere around 400, and German Shepherds are about 220 to 230, just to put that into perspective. Some of the strongest jaws for the size of their head of any animal. They are considered the smartest. I did not do this, by the way. He climbed up on me. They are considered the smartest quote-unquote reptile on the planet. They are the only ones that have been documented to seek out human attention over other stimuli like food. People have litter box trained them, people have target trained them. They just continue to surprise us with their intelligence and how aware they are. Now, reptiles are ectothermic. That means they are cold-blooded. They don't generate their own body heat like we do. And that's why you see iguanas and bearded dragons basking and stuff. They need that to warm up. We are endothermic. We generate our own body heat. Tegus have so far proven to be the only quote-unquote warm-blooded lizard. And what I mean by that is they're not true endotherms, but they are capable of seasonally raising their internal body temperature nearly 20 degrees during breeding season. This is a relatively recent scientific discovery, so the inner workings and the hows of it are still being studied. Argentine tegus are also one of the only lizards on the planet to have beaded scales. They're these very cool, rounded, three-dimensional scales, and the only other lizards I can think of off the top of my head that have them would be the Gila monster and the beaded lizard. They're two venomous lizards native to the Southwest in North America, and I would not recommend going to try and pet them, but tegus feel very cool. And researchers and scientists actually believe that these kind of scale patterns were very prominent in extinct taxa millions and millions of years ago, and it just kind of evolved away. So those are 5 of my strangest animals again. Like the video if you learned something. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the threequel to this one, 5 of My Strangest Animals Part 3, or any of the other animal videos that I upload weekly. Comment down below which of nature's strangest animals out there is your favorite. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you later. 25 years. Hi. Is also so dense that they'll actually, if it gets wet, hamsters and rats. No. So they'll eat a lot of dried grasses and things like that, and to extract even more nutrients from the food, they'll have nutritious food. So they'll eat a lot of dried grass. I could go on and on about these. Ooh. These are also called living fossils. Ooh, will you get off? Oh no, that would be dangerous. Ugh. Males get these kind of goofy... Can I help you? Okay. No, not on the microphone, not on the microphone. Okay. On the planet, as he does this. Endothermic, we generate our own body heat. Oh, dude, you are... This one, ow, does not always act it. Ow! What are you doing? You dingus? Ow! They are...